Welcome back, pod people, to a brand new episode of Cinema d'Amore. I'm your host, Justin Morgan. I'm here with
Chuck.
And we are connecting to Steven Soderbergh's Traffic from a month ago because we're bi-weekly, and yeah, that's how long ago it's been because we shoved the Oscars episode in between. We're technically recording before the Oscars, so we don't even know who's won an Oscar at this point. Our ballots are locked, and you already know the results of everything. You already know. We're not going to get into that. But tonight's movie is Grand Prix from 1966. It is connected to Traffic. And it's a movie that I didn't see previously, and I believe you did not see previously.
Nope.
Is that correct?
Never seen it.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure.
What if I just said, yeah, never seen it? Didn't even watch it for this one.
That'd be fucking strange. I don't want to name names, but it would feel like people that we've previously podcasted with who would not have watched the movie by the time that Yeah, you can rent it almost everywhere under the sun. I ended up watching it on YouTube.
I also watched it on YouTube.
Not in the correct aspect ratio, for sure. It was definitely squished a little bit. Also, the first version that I started watching was not in English. It got to a point where I was like, oh, we were just hearing like announcers and shit like that. And then I was like, oh, wait, this is a voiceover. I don't understand this language. So I had to switch. It's kind of like revolutionary for its time because it was one of the first movies to like innovatively figure out how to rig these cameras, and they're pretty big cameras, onto these race cars and simultaneously cut them with actual F1 races that they were having. I really thought I was going to love this movie more than I did. And I will say that as far as that camera work goes and everything, I really did enjoy that, but it was a little misleading because I thought the opening was very well done, and then all the scenes that they I think what they really wanted was to just get that footage of the racing and put it together in that way, and then afterwards thought, hey, maybe we'll build a story around this.
Yeah,
Is that
definitely.
The vibe you were getting?
It's a weird. They were definitely. Yeah, I don't know if that was their thought initially. They definitely have they just kind of drop you into the middle of a season, literally. That's just right there, and they don't. That's where it's tough. It wants you to feel like you're watching a real life documentary about F1. So it doesn't do any big backstories. It just starts with these characters, and it feels like you're supposed to just know them, but they're not based on any real racers. They're their own characters, but it just starts with this guy. We have James Garner, and he's a racer, and he references his past. He talks to Ferrari's guys, and they're like, yeah, we used to have good times in Ferrari. And then you have the driver for Ferrari, and he's referencing yeah, I used to have some good races. And it feels like there's just a lot of this movie that's just people going, yeah, remember all that stuff that's not in this movie that happened before? That was cool, wasn't it? It's just
it just starts following characters randomly where you're, like you said, they're in the middle of that race, and then it's following Jessica Walter, Lucille Bluth, and it's you don't even know how she plays into it at that point.
And then they're referencing the people reference her relationship to her husband. That it's again, it feels like they want you to know. You should already know these people. Oh yeah, everybody knows that they have a bad relationship. I'm like, do we? You just you started the movie and haven't shown us anything.
Yeah, and I feel like that type of world building can be okay, but it really did feel like you walked in halfway through a movie and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening?
My version was funny. I don't know if it was the same one of the versions that you watched on YouTube. I clicked on one version and it had the overture start at the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I started with.
The other, okay, so maybe I clicked on one and it cut the overture off and it just starts, and I was like, I kind of had the same thought. I was like, oh, did I miss 5 minutes of this movie? Did it cut too abruptly? Did I miss something? Because the way it just starts, I was just like, I feel like I've missed something here.
So I watched the overture version, and that's the one where after 5 minutes, I was like, oh wait, this voiceover is not in English. So I switched to the one that like cut out the overture and like cut out, I'm sure, the intermission and all that stuff.
Mine had the intermission still. It just didn't have the overture.
Oh, well, my intermission was real short. I didn't believe it was the real intermission, but
mine was like 6 minutes long. So,
oh wow,
so
no, mine was
versions.
definitely cut short. Yeah, and it had like the one had a really had a cool, I would say, a cool, interesting opening where you had the title card with the exhaust pipe. What's the guy that did the opening credits? He does the posters. Yeah, he did just like a crazy duplicating, quadrupling, like the same image. The shit that he normally does.
Yeah.
And then the version that I watched after that, where I switched to because there was no, I needed the English. It didn't even have that. So you did kind of miss that. Probably that like opening, or perhaps you could have missed that opening credits. And it goes straight into this race. Like I actually feel like, do we even see the start of the race? It's just like they're in the race.
I think they're just in the race as soon as the movie starts.
So like my theory is that in 1966, and watching these races on television that weren't all that great in quality, to go into the theater and see this, you were probably blown away by it.
Yeah.
I also had that feeling that when we go back and listen to the Senna episode that we did in December, it's really strange because everybody feels like they're way too old for this. But as we discussed in that episode, they've progressively got younger. Like everyone that races now is like, it's like any other sport. Everybody's like young 20s, and this is like you're all washed up at 57.
40s, the one guy in his 40s, it's like that's the oldest guy to ever do this sport.
Yeah, I felt like they didn't even know who they wanted to follow. Like there was that French guy, and then what was his partner? Was he Italian?
He was Italian. It was like Nico or something.
Yeah, like, and he didn't come up till like
he was like not interesting. He's just like I don't know. It was just like the typical. There's 4 main characters. There's the French racer is like the old veteran who's been around forever. James Garner's like in, I guess, like the stage right before that. Yeah,
I know. I'm just kidding.
Younger, but he's seemingly, again, because it feels like they don't explain enough to tell you all these guys' backstories. I think maybe he never won the championship or something, but he was always close, but I guess he was just too reckless of a driver. Like that's kind of, I guess, where you get some things from him, that he's a little too, he crashes just as often as he wins, so he could never win the championship. Then you have his racing partner at the beginning, who's like more of an up and coming racer, that I guess his wife thinks he pushes things too far and is always on the verge of crashing himself, and that's why she doesn't like to watch his races. And then the Italian guy that's his partner at Ferrari's just like the super young, like brand new racer that has barely done anything. Type. Yeah, and has like multiple girlfriends throughout the movie.
Yeah, I don't even know. I did like the actor. I know I've seen him in well, I like Toshiro Mifune, but in this,
of course he was Toshiro Mifune. But yeah, he doesn't do too much in this.
In this, he doesn't. In this, he doesn't even. They dub him, and I thought the dubbing was actually pretty good because I was like, "That's no way, that's him saying that." But it was more like tonally than it was what he was saying. But like, I thought his like lips, like the lip syncing and everything was like very well matched. It didn't have that like they were just off by like a hair. I also really liked his introduction because they explain it the second time that you meet Toshiro Mifune's character, but the first time, James Garner's talking to him, and there's an interpreter that's interpreting what Mifune's saying, but like Mifune clearly understands his English because he's not translating it into Japanese for Mifune. He's only translating it back into English for Garner's character. So I was like, this already, like, I thought at first, not that it was a mistake, but maybe they cut it out for time because, they're already pushing like 3-hour runtime with this movie. But then he's just like, I refuse to speak English to the press. And I was like, oh, Okay. I feel, or maybe like they didn't have enough time to finish that scene, or I feel like they were winging it. But no, I was gonna say the French actor from a couple of the Melville films and stuff that I like from the French New Wave that played the Jean Pierre, whatever, the veteran racer.
Jean
I
Pierre,
thought that
French guy.
the very French guy, I thought that he played a very good character, but I don't know, I didn't even really like Garner
I
in
think it's
this
like,
movie too much.
yeah, he feels like he's supposed to be the main character, but his character feels like the least developed out of a lot of the main race drivers that they follow. And it's, yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Again, the racing scenes are the most interesting part of this, but it does at some point start to get confusing the way that they built the story of almost everything that's not racing is like the most
Yeah.
over dramatic like romance movie you've ever seen in your life. Like it's so opposite of all the racing stuff, and you do start to get confused. It's the yeah James Garner hooks up with his ex partner who he like kind of caused to crash at Monte Carlo, and then
Oh, he was funny. Like, I'm pretty sure unintentionally, but he was very funny.
they they have that, and then the like we said the Italian guy has like multiple girlfriends. He has that one girl that he's with for most of the movie that eventually he like ignores her or like leaves her at a
Hmm.
party or something like that, so she dumps him or something, and he's like, oh well, I'll just meet a million girls like you or something like that. And then yeah, the French
Your
racer.
explanation sounded very like Beavis and Butthead-esque.
I
You're like,
mean, it is.
she
This
like
is very.
dumped him.
He's like does something, yeah. And then the French
I
guys with that reporter, and they're like, "Aren't you married?" And it's like very vague as to like, "Oh, me and my wife don't
We're swingers.
yeah, like we're separated. We don't get in each other's way."
Yeah, I feel like the dramatic non-racing stuff was for a completely different audience than the people that showed up for the racing. I know like technically it was like a very like exciting movie, but I still don't like, yeah, maybe back then I would have walked out of that movie and would have basically been like, oh, those race scenes, like I fucking loved those race scenes, and I thought that everything was really well cut together. I also am very surprised by some of the stuff I was seeing because I'm assuming that it's how they were, but they didn't fucking stop the racing when there was an accident. So there were literally like people like near the track or like basically on the track or crossing the track, and I'm like, well, this seems really fucking dangerous. Also him and his partner when they crash in the beginning, and like I don't know, I'm thinking like they're gonna life flight him, but maybe like they didn't do that then,
I don't
so
think it's a
like they
thing.
strap him up and they put him on the boat, and I'm like, this seems like it would hurt him worse. Like it seems like those videos that you see online of people in the gurneys and then the gurney like falls over or collapses or something. But no, there's was a really funny scene when he's like watching the TV and it's like way too long. I think it's him too, where he's getting in the car, in his race car, and it's like a fucking 3-minute scene of this guy trying to get into his car, and it borders on really like a very comedic performance just on that. Like I was like, man, this guy's really phoning it in. Like I don't know what he's trying to win an award or something for this performance, but he got all the way in, and then I'm like, should he be driving? He literally got in like he can barely control like move his body.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be able to hit the brakes with like
Yeah,
both
like
of his legs not working.
yeah, like his one leg, he had like did like a stiff leg thing getting into the car, like he could barely bend to get down inside that car. And I was like, this is not gonna go well. Some accidents I read were real, like when Garner's car like catches on fire, like it was not
Yeah.
purposefully supposed to catch on fire. They just were winging it for that scene too.
Yeah, and I think they said they did say James Garner was like the only one that was remotely competent at driving the cars. Pretty much everybody else they could only use close-up shots of their faces in the car, but he actually yeah did drive some of this stuff. The other ones were just untrainable on driving a car apparently, or driving those type of cars at least.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it's wild too because I looked up to see if there were any rear projection scenes, It didn't look like there were in any of the races, but there were scenes in like the dramatic scenes where it
I was about to
definitely
say, yeah, I'm
did.
pretty sure. Yeah,
It
you could tell there was
definitely looked like
there.
it, but they said no, there's no rear
Mm.
projection. And I'm like, are you sure there's no rear projection in like any of the movie? Because there are definitely scenes where Mifune's talking to Garner and there's like mechanics working in the background, and I'm like, that literally doesn't look like it's happening in the same scene. Apparently it was. I don't
Mm.
know. Yeah, this is also they shot in 70 millimeter film. Well, I guess technically 65 millimeter film. So they had pretty fucking large cameras. I didn't do any of like the footage of behind the scenes to see how they looked on the cars,
Yeah.
but in the races, I don't know. They did a really fucking good job of removing those cameras. Like I almost was like kind of expecting to get maybe there was one, but I didn't see any shots. Another car had a camera or something on it, and the runtime. I could deal with a 3-hour movie if like some of those shots that were literally just like 3-4 minutes of just a camera on the front of the car going around the racetrack. Like I could probably watch like an hour of that
Yeah.
easily. I'm glad that I saw it. It's probably one of those movies that I almost will certainly never watch again ever in my life. And and for me, I put it like somewhere in the middle. I feel like the drama is so bad. It's like some of the like if it had no racing in it at all, it would be no one would ever talk about it. It'd be the worst fucking movie. And if it was nothing but racing, it was they could and they worked a lot better on the story, made the story more about the racing. I think that it would be like masterpiece. So for me, it's really just kind of falls in the middle on this one.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I don't know, the only thing that I think it probably was good for, helped was the innovations for the technology of the cars. And this would have been right because I think 66 I think was also the same year as Bullet. So it was like right around that exact same time. So this is when
Mhm.
you started getting more of the car chase movies where they were able to do things like that, like mounting the cameras to the cars, things like this. Then you'd get later like the French Connection and stuff like that. So it's
And a
like,
lot more controlled too by the fact that they had to work around the actual races that were happening.
yeah,
I believe I read somewhere that this movie too, they weren't allowed to film like during the races, so I have no idea how they cut some of that footage. They must have filmed the actual race and then and then ended up copying it. I thought like even when they were going around the track, like the second round, like I could tell where they were in the track the first time I had seen them. So yeah, like I was impressed with that. I don't know if Garner, I don't think pushed this movie like Steve McQueen did for his Le Mans movie.
it was like recommended on YouTube since I was already on there. But yeah, I saw there was like interviews with James Garner, and he said that like him and McQueen didn't talk for years because I guess McQueen was supposed to be doing this movie first, and then he dropped out for some reason, and that's when he started doing Le Mans, and then like James Garner told him, "Hey, I'm gonna do that Grand Prix movie," and it's another one of those cases of Grand Prix was the one that got to theaters first, so it's the one that got more awards and more credit for being the big racing movie than Le Mans did.
I mean, Le Mans, I watched Le Mans a couple years ago, and honestly, I wasn't all that impressed with it. I felt like, comparatively, I guess I would probably prefer Le Mans. I feel like the racing in Grand Prix was better, and then Le Mans like really didn't have like as big of a bloated bullshit story that this one did. But it's really interesting because this episode will be interesting to go back to after the summer because, as we said, Brad Pitt's was filming his F1 movie called F1, very creative,
Yeah,
where he
yeah,
was
they're
doing
really
big.
stretching these titles to really really creative zones of Grand Prix, Le Mans, and F1.
Well, I think it's the Top Gun Maverick director. The shots and
Yeah,
everything looked great, but it was that like I don't know what it is with these movies where Grand Prix, Le Mans, F1, probably another more. They all have to film during the actual races. They're like, there's no way we can
It's
recreate
probably
these
it probably
races.
is somehow. I mean, it probably is like those cars cost so much to manufacture that it probably is
To
somehow
replicate it, yeah.
cheaper budget wise to film with the cars already, like the cars that all these companies already paid to make, than for them to sit there and have to, because if you want it to be realistic, you have to have 20 cars out there. They have 22 because they have their extra cars for this movie. But watching like Drive to Survive, and they talk about how those cars are so insanely expensive that, yeah, to make 20 versions of those and have them all look realistic, it's like it probably is, as much as it seems impractical, it probably is way cheaper to just film on the tracks with the cars already there, and then just put your two cars that you had to pay for and just add them and let everything else just be done.
Yeah, maybe to Survive also hurt this movie for me because, like, James Garner's like, I don't know what's wrong with the car. I'm not I didn't build the thing. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, we watched Drives to Survive, and these people, like, yeah, they didn't build the thing, but they can
Yeah.
they're very good at explaining what the
They still
issues
know
are
how the
with the
cars
cars.
work. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
when I
like,
read
it's sticking. The
the
traction's a
book.
little, it doesn't feel very,
Yeah. Like when I read the book that was like the history of F1, almost every single driver, especially during like the 40s, 50s and 60s, their thing would always start like he started as a mechanic in his dad's shop, so
yeah.
he knew how to build cars. Like that was pretty much everyone's description. So yeah, the fact that you have these drivers that are like, I don't know how cars work, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how the car works?
Yeah. I just do the steering wheel. I'm like, this
Yeah.
almost seems offensive to people that do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they over explain some things. Like, some things are funny. Like, there was a line in this movie, from this view, you can only see a short section of the race. And they're like, yep. And
Yeah.
that's like the whole line.
It almost literally is describing like yeah, why going to a race wouldn't be fun. It's like, you mean these people sit here and they can only see the cars go by one time there? Yep. Wow.
Also, too, like, do you see the footage of the people watching the race? Nobody has any ear protection. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're probably like all deaf now. Like, there's probably not.
Yeah.
Well, if they're alive, I'm sure they like nobody can hear anything.
Yeah.
My big assumption. But yeah, I mean, of the car movies, I think what was I gonna say? Oh, Ford versus Ferrari. That's a good example of, they did go back and do a period film and have to build those cars, and like you said, they are probably even more expensive unless they could use some of the footage for like green screen or something and actually had the cars from borrowed from a museum on lease or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, there's definitely been better racing movies. Like how you were saying about the guy that gets into the accident at the beginning, and it feels like the most overdramatic thing of him trying to get back into a car. Like even something like Ron Howard's movie Rush, which is also based on a true story, and that guy caught fire and was that severely injured, and even he doesn't make like that big of a deal when he's like eventually able to like get back into a car.
Yeah, I don't even really think they even say what happened to his partner besides him being like in a hospital bed with bandages on,
Yeah,
and
they
like
don't say what his
watching
actual injuries are.
way too many reactions of him like watching races and interviews and just being upset.
Yeah, yeah. We've had
Honestly,
lots of
I didn't.
Ferrari. Ferrari's always there. We had the Ferrari movie.
Even the Ferrari movie, which I thought was okay.
I mean, it
Yeah,
had the
like that whole
greatest
movie was
crash
built.
scene of all time.
Yeah, the movie was built around that crash scene. Like,
Yeah,
that was the
that was the
whole reason
entire
that went to
sole
production.
purpose for that movie to
He's
exist
like, oh,
was
who could be we need a driver. What driver? How about Adam Driver?
yeah.
Done.
We'll get
Done.
Adam Driver to be the driver. No, no.
I also really liked that the team that Garner got fired from. I can't. I think he was an American
I
team,
don't remember which team it was.
but
Yeah.
but I really do like that he joined a Japanese team. There was no
Also, that was
Japanese racers.
after he was a newscaster for like a week. He like shows up to
Oh
one race
yeah.
to be a sportscaster, and that's that whole like weird scene where everyone's like, "Oh, you look real out of place," and he's like, "Yeah, I hate this," and then he's like immediately like, "Hey, do you want to be a driver?" And he's like, "Oh, okay, I quit."
It
Not
made
gonna be
me
a
think
driver again.
of Tom Brady because there was a line where they said something like, "You were an excellent racer. You were a terrible broadcaster."
You're a terrible broadcaster. Yeah.
I don't know if he was a very good racer either, because like you said, we didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I guess he was
And I did
okay.
the opening scene, the opening montage is the beginning of the race. So I
Hmm.
guess technically they started it in the montage, and then when the
Yeah.
movie starts, they're like, who knows what lap they're on. So the theme of connectivity, I did it. I was very simple. Can you tell how this connected to traffic? Give me your guess.
I mean, one guess I was going to throw out was it takes place in multiple countries.
Good guess, but no.
That was my big guess there.
That
So
would be a good
I
guess.
don't think there's not an actor that's in both of it, is there?
No, but that would actually be really interesting if there was.
I mean, I was like, maybe there is like one. I was like thinking like, is it someone that's like ridiculously young in the movie that pops up?
Oh yeah, and what's the guy that did Tom Jones? That would be funny if he was in this because he was acting around this time, and he is in Traffic. Because remember, you said he was in Traffic and Aaron Brockovich. He was the only
Oh yeah,
actor that
yeah,
was
yeah.
in both of them.
Albert Finney, yeah,
Yeah, Albert Finney. Yeah, young Albert Finney could definitely like
yeah.
something like that could work.
He pops up in both places.
No, this is more about an achievement, an award.
You know what? I thought that's where you were going. It did win. They both won for best film editing. I already know that.
That was my connection. Yeah, they both won. Traffic won like 4 Academy Awards, and this won 3. It
Yeah,
won all the
I think it won
technical awards.
like sound and editing.
Sound, cinematography, and editing. And I
Yeah,
do think the cinematography looked great, and I'm sure it was a lot of the
I guess
rigging with the
yeah,
races and
and
everything.
I guess the editing's more for the racing because the editing in the rest of the movie, like the editing in the scenes that aren't the races, is not
Yeah,
great. Like scenes are too
for
long. Things are very awkwardly cut.
Well, I was like looking this up. There's 2 editors, Henry Berman and Stu Linder.
So I wonder did one do the editing for the? I wonder if one of them did more of the race editing and the other did the editing for the other
Yeah, but
parts.
I couldn't tell you what they did because like Stu Linder did The Dirty Dozen, Cincinnati Kid, The Three Musketeers, The Four Musketeers, and then Berman did The Andromeda Strain and Seconds. Seconds is a great movie by John Frankenheimer who directed this, and
Yeah,
John Frankenheimer also did The Manchurian Candidate, right?
yeah. He did a bunch of other
Uh,
movies that are more interesting than this movie, but
Seconds is a fucking fantastic movie. I
yeah,
really do enjoy that movie. Oh, and you brought up how he had this fight with Steve McQueen, and they were both in The Great Escape together, him and Garner.
yeah.
But yeah, my connection was editing, just winning the Academy Award for editing. I was trying to be a little bit different, but then again, it's like we said with the last time when we were connecting Traffic to Licorice Pizza. So many different things like connected. Like you could have easily said different countries. You could have said like you did. You could have said it followed several different actors, although their stories intersected a hell like I would say more
Yeah.
in this than some of the Traffic ones. Yeah, I went with editing, and it was the only Academy Award that crossed over between the two. So I wanted it to be real distinct. I literally just when I was looking for a movie to go with, I found the Academy Award for editing, and I just went down all the winners, and I had pretty much seen every single Academy Award edited movie except for like was it Chicago? There was like a musical or something, but I was like, oh, Grand Prix. We didn't see Grand Prix, and we were just talking about that when we did Senna. So I jumped on another movie that neither of us had seen. I had no expectations for it. I guess it's another reason why I haven't heard too much about it.
Yeah.
Like I think it's come up more so whenever like when we were talking about F1. I don't know, maybe it was mentioned in your book too, like because you seem to know. I don't know if you found out your information outside of the book, but it seemed like that would be something that would have to be in the F1 book, like the first time that they tried to cinematically like put people in the driver's seat.
Yeah, they talked about stuff like that, and then kind of funny when they bring up things being like too dramatic that they don't want to be associated with. Is I think that's what happened with the movie Days of Thunder. Like they were
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
F1 was like we don't because I guess I don't know if they probably have the same thing for something like this, and maybe for the new F1 movie. Like if you're going to have our racers in it and feature us so heavily, like they probably have a lot of script approval things of like there's things they won't let you do, and they said like that movie was getting way too over dramatic, so that's why it had to be switched to like an IndyCar movie instead.
Yeah, I believe it. Because, like, yeah, if your reputation's on the line, you don't know what movie you're dealing with, and then you'll have an incident with, like, what was it, Sex in the City with the Peloton bike, where they're like, yeah, you can use the Peloton bike, and they give the character a heart attack, kill him off on the Peloton bike, and they're like, oh shit, we didn't know the context of we didn't realize that it was going to be a big thing like that. Shit.
Yeah. If you don't get that script approval to know what they're going to do with your product, then that's on you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you could pretty much do script approval, but at the same time, with a movie like this, you are going to write stuff around the races. I don't think the movie did it well, but like if there was a crash and you got footage of it, write it into the movie, you know? Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I think they said there was a stunt driver that died during the making of this movie too. So, or maybe not a stunt driver, but there was a death.
Somebody
in
died.
The actual, yeah, like there's somebody died in the actual race. Yeah, because I looked it up to be like, did anybody die during these movies? And I believe it said that, it kind of lied to me. It said 2 people died. And the first one was like the person died in the race, one of the races that they were recording. And another one died after the race. They weren't even racing. I was like, you can't count this person. Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that... Okay. Oh, you'll like this too. The actor that died, he died filming one of the sequences. It says he's an actor and a stunt driver, so maybe he wasn't an actual F1 driver, but his name was Eugene Hackman. Gene Hackman. And he passed away, but I just thought you would like that he was Gene Hackman.
Eugene Hackman.
Yeah, and now the other one says that this professional driver, Maston Gregory, he was involved in the filming, and it said that he died in a racing accident in the 1966 24-hour Le Mans shortly after the movie wrapped. I'm like, you can't count that. That has nothing to do with the movie anymore. That's fucking cheating. You are cheating. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say. I did look up to see if James Garner was related to Jennifer Garner. No. He's not even really a Garner. He's a Baumgartner. But, did that acting shit where he's like, my stage name, I'm going to drop the bum from the beginning of Garner. So he's not Baumgartner. He's just Garner. I did like him in The Notebook. That's my train. He was pretty good in The Notebook. He ended on a high note. I think he died 10 years after that or something, but Yeah, and during that time, that's really all they were talking about. They're like, oh, you know him from Grand Prix. I wouldn't even remember he was in that movie. He was so stiff and dry, and yeah, I was not a big fan of his performance. I don't know what the hell he was. He felt like he was a character from like a sitcom or something. He did not seem to fit in.
He was trying.
He had the ego seemed out of place and everything, and I'm sure Brad Pitt will fix that in F1.
Yeah.
I am interested to see it. Like, it also seems like one of those, like, I don't know if it's really going to blow people away in the world. Like, even when we watch F1 Drive to Survive, you're seeing, you actually have the cameras and shit on all these cars. So what's the Brad Pitt movie really going to pull off that's like, oh, you've never seen it before?
It's got to have all the drama, all that extra drama.
There's 10 hours of drama every season. And I think that it comes out in March. So when this is out, Drive to Survive's new season's got to be out. It has to. So. And our next episode will be our 400th episode. So I'm interested to see what you pick for how you celebrate our big 400th episode, Chuck.
I'm interested too.
Yeah. See where it goes. I was just like it's I don't know what you would connect it to, but just like some terrible forgotten comedy from like the 90s, Joe's Apartment or something. Like I don't know how you're gonna connect. I'm sure I won't figure it out either. I didn't. It took me like 500 tries to figure it out the last time. I only got it after you hinted. I feel like we summed it up pretty fairly. I really don't even see this really being anybody's favorite movie.
It's somebody's favorite movie.
That's what they say. A movie is always somebody's favorite movie. Anyways, we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.